Hello, English readers, and welcome to this new live read along of Lydia's book club. I'm Lydia Bureau and I'm an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Lydia's book club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature and contemporary novels. Once a week, I meet the members of the book club in a live workshop via Zoom to discuss the chapters of the book that we are currently reading during the month. In this book club, I also tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading the contemporary novel Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this reading is for C1 or advanced level. If you would like to know more about Taylor Jenkins Reid, the author, and the novel Daisy Jones and the Six, then I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 22, an introduction to Taylor Jenkins Reid and Daisy Jones and the Six, which is available on YouTube and on my Spotify podcast called Read in English. This way you have kind of overview of what the book is about. So you have to be quite a comfortable reader in English and have quite a high level in English to be able to read this novel with us. Okay. But I reassure you, we do all different levels in the book club. So if you are A2, B1, then you can find other live readings and other books that are adapted to your level on the YouTube channel, but also on my website with the live workshops. That the work that we are doing on the discussion that we have around the book. Okay, so in addition to these 11 live, so over this 3 weeks, I'm going to host 11, I'm hosting 11 live reading sessions, but so far we've done 8 sessions. And you will be able to rewatch or watch these videos on this channel. And also they're available on Spotify podcast, Read in English. And in addition to these live reading sessions, I'm hosting 3 live workshops on Daisy Jones and the Six, so that we have the possibility to, you will have the ability to discuss the book, the chapters of the book. So far, we've done 2 workshop sessions, 2 live workshop sessions. And this Saturday will be the last session. So if you want to join, you can still do it up until Friday. So make sure you subscribe to the book club to have access to these workshops. You can just click on the link below this video and you will find all the dates and all the information on my website. And also I'm excited to announce that you can now purchase the 3-part live workshop on White Teeth. So last month we studied this book, White Teeth, which is aimed at B2 or upper intermediate level. So now I give access to people who are not sure about joining the book club. You can still purchase those 3 live workshops in which you will learn a lot about Zadie Smith, about the novel, and the different topics that are mentioned in the novel, and what and other topics that we discussed around it. So yes, from now on you can purchase this live workshop on my website, and there are more as well. So just click on the link below this video and you will see all the live workshops that you can purchase on my website. All right, so today is a live reading session 9. and we are going to read the pages from 205 to 261. So it's going to be a long session again. We are doing a series of long sessions at the moment, and today we are finishing the aura chapter. So we read part 1 last Friday. Hi, Kitty. Hello. And today we are reading part 2. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the chapter now. So in this chapter, in this first part of the chapter, we discussed the making of their new album. It's the 3rd album of the 6, and it's the 2nd album of Daisy Jones. And Daisy and Billy are finding they're struggling a little bit to agree on the writing process and the topics they're going to talk about in their songs. So they it's quite tricky for them to adjust to this new situation, the fact that there are 2 brains to write songs, and they have their own ideas. Billy is talking a lot about in his songs about his wife Camilla, and and how much he loves her and everything that he wants to do for her. And Daisy talks more about herself navigating through life and music industry and drugs, sex, and and rock and roll, and addictions as well. So and also, yeah, her position as a woman and relationship. So they have different perceptions on the songs that they're talking about, and yeah, it takes them a little while before they find a middle ground where they manage to agree and work out how to work together. So they managed to write this album, and they become quite prolific in writing songs, because at some point in a space of 1 week, they managed to write 4 or 5 songs. The band, also the musicians, start to find their own to put their own touch on the composition of the songs. And that's quite difficult for Billy to let go of, because he's used to control everything, from the writing to the composition of the song, the production of the song. And with Daisy coming into the band, joining the band, it changed a little bit the power dynamic inside the band, and the other people in the band the other members wants to have their own touch and have their own say in terms of the production and the composition of the music, especially for Aura. For example, where you've got Karen, who wants to have her own way of interpreting the song, and Graham. And when Billy listens to the final results of the song, is a little bit I would say he's restraining himself to not say that he doesn't like it, or that it wasn't what he wanted for the song. But after talking to Teddy, who is is like a father figure for him, he respects him a lot, and he has helped him a lot when he was struggling with addiction. So he's seeking his advice and his feedback. And once Diddy told him that actually it was actually their work was great, then he was able to let go and to let the song as it was composed, and not make it his own way, and allow other people, other members of the band, have their own creative space within the band. So you see here a little bit of an evolution from Billy to in comparison to the way the band was running before Daisy. There is a big before and after Daisy's arrival in the band. So yeah, it's a big step for him, as we can see here. And at some point, Daisy and Billy are meant to meet for a recording session, and Daisy doesn't show up to the session, and instead she's caught up in this party with this guy called Mike Riva, a big name in the music scene at the time, and she completely forgets to go to the recording session, and Billy and Rod, I think, yeah, they arrive at the Chateau Marmont where Daisy is living, and they see her in this dress in the pool, covered, completely wet, and when she sees them, she realizes that she had forgotten the recording session, and she drops her glass, and she's so drunk and high on drugs that she doesn't even feel the pieces of glass on the floor, I mean on the concrete floor, and she is gonna walk on these pieces of glass, splinters of glasses, and she's gonna, which is going to make her bleed, and she's not even going to feel the pain of walking on these pieces of glasses. So that's that shows as well how and sensitive she is in terms of pain, and how much she's unreliable in terms of her, well, professionally unreliable. So this episode is shows that side of Daisy, and how unstable she is as well. But she's gonna try to redeem herself and be punctual and present during the follow-up sessions, recording sessions afterwards, and feeling very guilty about her behavior. towards Rod and Billy, especially. So that's mainly what happens here. And on Karen and Graham's side, well, we learned that maybe Karen doesn't have as much feelings for Graham than he has in return, but he's completely in love with her, and he's not quite she doesn't feel as strong as he does, and towards her, and she's going to seek advice from Camilla, and she will tell her to let him know that, well, to whether if she doesn't like him as much, then it's better to tell him, or to just be honest with him about her feelings towards him and towards their relationship. So yeah, it's that's the little downside of, I don't know, about this lovely relationship of these two. Well, it doesn't seem like it's going in the same direction anyway, of what they expect both of their relationship. Right, so that being done, let's get started with the reading of part 2. And we are starting page 205. Okay, so I have this edition, so it's probably a different, maybe 200 for other edition. Just check. It starts with Rod speaking. Okay. We were working to record the backlog of songs that Daisy and Billy had written. I think they had almost the entire album by that point. We were already talking about what could fit on the record and what couldn't. People don't think about it anymore because the technology is so different, but we had such a tight running time back then. You could fit 22 minutes on one side of a record most of the time. Karen. Graham wrote a song called The Canyon. Graham had written this song, the only lyrics I'd ever written that I really liked. Now I wasn't a songwriter. That was always Billy's thing. But I'd scratched some stuff. Sorry, this is doing. So, but I'd scratched some stuff down from time to time and had finally written a song I was proud of. The song was about how, even though Karen and I were both living large by that point, I'd be happy living in a crappy house as long as I was with her. Where Pete and Eddie still lived. You know, the heat barely worked, and there was rarely hot water, and one of the windows was busted and all that. But that didn't matter if you were together. There's no water in the sink and the bath, and these are, I quote the lyrics of the song. There's no water in the sink and the bathtub leaks, but I hold your arm, but I hold your warm body in a cold shower, stand there with you and waste the hours. Karen. I was a little skittish about it. I never promised Graham any future for us, and I was worried he was seeing one. But unfortunately, back then, at least, I tended to just avoid problems I didn't want to deal with. Warren. Graham wrote a song, and I asked Billy to consider it for the album, and Billy blew him off. Billy. By the time Graham came in with his song, he wanted us to record he wanted us to record. Daisy and I had the album almost done, and the songs were complicated and nuanced and a little dark. Daisy and I had talked about wanting to write 1 or 2 more songs, and we wanted at least one of them to be a little harder, less romantic. Well, Graham wrote a love song, just a simple little love song. You see how a little love song, how he belittle the value of his brother, his song's brother, his brother's song. Sorry, it didn't have the complexity that Daisy and I were chasing. Graham, it was the first song I really wrote, and I wrote it for the woman I loved. And Billy was so involved in his own shit, he didn't even know who I wrote it about, and he didn't ask. He read my song in about 30 seconds and said, "Maybe on the next album, man. We got this one now." I'd always had Billy's back. I'd always been there for him, supported him through anything and everything. Billy. We said with this album, I wouldn't tell anyone how to do their jobs. So I wasn't going to listen to anybody telling me and Daisy what to sing. If we're staying in our lanes, let's stay in our lanes. Karen. Graham sold it to the Dunne boys, and they had a big hit of it. I was happy about that. Happy how it all ended. I wouldn't have wanted to have to play that song night after night. I never understood people putting their real emotions into something they know they have to play on tour over and over and over again. Here, Karen is a little bit, she is not very, doesn't seem to be a very sensitive character, or very tough nature. Rod. That was around the time that Daisy and Billy started recording their vocals together. On most of the tracks, they were in the booth at the time, singing into the same mic, harmonizing in real time together. Eddie. Billy and Daisy on the same mic in one of those small booths. I mean, we'd all kill to be stuck up that close to Daisy. Artie Snyder, the sound engineer. It would have been a lot easier for me to have them in 2 different booths, so I could isolate their vocals. Them singing in the same mic made my job about 10 times harder. If Daisy had an area where she was soft, I couldn't overdub it without losing Billy's. It made cutting back and forth between takes almost impossible. We'd have to record over and over again to get a take where they both sounded good at the same time. The band would go home for the night, and Daisy and Billy and Teddy and I would still be there, burning the midnight oil. It really limited how polished I could make the tracks. I actually was pretty pissed off, but Teddy wasn't backing me up. Rod. I thought Teddy made the right call because it showed on the track. Because it showed on the track. You could feel they were breathing the same air and they sang. It was, I mean, there's no other word for it. It was intimate. Billy, you know when you have music that has all the notes sanded down and the scratches buffed out? Where's the emotion in that? I heard this secondhand from Teddy, so I couldn't vouch for how true it is. But there was a night when Billy and Daisy pulled an all-nighter doing overdubs on This Could Get Ugly. Teddy said during one of the takes late at night, Billy didn't take his eyes off Daisy for the whole take. And they finished, and Billy caught Teddy watching. And Billy immediately stopped, tried to pretend he hadn't been looking at all. Daisy. Just how honest do we have to get here? I know I told you I'll tell you everything, but how much everything do you really want to know? Okay. Billy. We were at Teddy's pool house. Daisy was wearing a black dress with the thin straps. What are those called? We were working on a song called For You. We didn't have much at first, but it was about me getting sober for Camilla. I mean, I never expressly stated that because I knew Daisy would give me a hard time that I was writing about Camilla. So I said it was about willing to give up something for someone else. Daisy had reminded me we had wanted to write something a bit harder, and I had said we could do that later because I really liked this idea. I might have said, this one has really been on my mind. Daisy. It was only about 11 in the morning, but I was buzzed already. Billy was playing a song on the keyboard, and I sat next to him. He was showing me the notes. I was playing a few with him. We were trying to figure out the right key. The few lines Billy had written already, I remember them exactly. Nothing I wouldn't do to go back to the past and wait for you. He sang that sitting right next to me. Billy. Daisy put her hand on mine to stop me from playing. I looked at her and she said, I like writing with you. And I said, I like writing with you too. And then I said something I shouldn't have said. Oh. Okay. Daisy. He said, I like a lot about you. Billy. Daisy smiled when I said it. She lit up. The wide smile and this girlish laugh. And I could see her eyes started to water just the littlest bit. Or maybe I was imagining it. I don't know. It feels good to make Daisy smile. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Daisy. I like a lot about you. Billy. She was dangerous, and I knew that. But I didn't think I could recognize that the safer she felt to me, the more dangerous she was. Daisy. Before I even really knew what I was doing, I leaned in to kiss him. I was so close to him, I could feel his breath. And when I opened my eyes, his were closed. And I thought, this makes sense. It made sense in this deeply gratifying way. Billy. I lost myself, I think, for a moment at least. Daisy. My lips barely grazed his. I could feel them only in the sense that I was aware of having almost felt them. But then he pulled back. Billy looked at me and his eyes were so kind when he said it. He said, I can't. My heart dropped in my chest. I didn't mean that. I don't mean that figuratively. I could actually feel it sinking in my chest. Billy. I shrugged, thinking about it, about that time, how I could have made one small mistake that would have thrown my whole life away. Daisy. After he turned me down, he sort of looked back at the keys, and I could tell he was trying to pretend that what had just happened hadn't just happened, probably for my sake, although I think a lot for his sake too. It was excruciating. The lie he was trying to tell us both. I much prefer someone screaming at me than tensing up and staying still. Billy. When Graham and I were kids, our mom used to take us to this community pool during the summer. And this one time, Graham was sitting in the edge of the pool toward the deep end. And this was before he could swim. And I stood there next to him, and my brain went, I could push him in. And that terrified the hell out of me. I didn't want to push him in. I would never push him in. But it scared me that the only thing between this moment of calm and the biggest tragedy of my life was me choosing not to do it. That really tripped me out, that everyone else was that precarious, that there wasn't some all-knowing mechanism in place that stopped things that shouldn't happen from happening. That's something that had always, that's something that had always scared me. That's how it felt being around Daisy Jones. Daisy. I said to him, I should go. And he said, Daisy, it's okay. Billy. We both just wanted to pretend it hadn't happened. I desperately hoped that one of us would stand up and walk away. Daisy. I grabbed my coat and I grabbed my keys and I said, I'm really sorry. And I left. Billy. Finally, I had to be the one to go. So here it's interesting to see that Daisy said that she left and he said that it's him who left. I told Daisy we'd pick it back up later in the week, and I got in my car and drove home to Camilla. She said, Camilla, you're home early. And I said, I wanted to be with you. Daisy, I drove to the beach. I don't know why. I just had to drive somewhere. So I drove until the road ended. I drove until I hit the sand. I parked my car and I was feeling so ashamed and so embarrassed and so stupid and so alone and lonely and pathetic and dirty and awful. And then I got really mad. I got mad at everything about him, that he'd pulled away, that he'd made me embarrassed, that he didn't feel the way I wanted him to feel. Or maybe it was that I suspected he did feel that way and he wasn't admitting it. But anyway, you wanted to spin it. But anyway, you wanted to spin it. I was angry. It wasn't rational. I mean, whatever really is. But as irrational as it was, I was livid. I was furious. There was rage in my chest. We are talking about probably the first man in my life who really saw me, who ever really understood me, who had so much in common with me, and he still didn't love me. When you find that rare person who really knows who you are and they still don't love you, I was burning. Billy. It was early enough in the day. I looked at Camilla and I said, what if we get in the car and drive somewhere? Camilla said, where? I turned to Julia and I said, if you could do anything right now, what would you do? And she didn't hesitate. She screamed, Disneyland! So we packed up the car and drove the kids to Disneyland. Daisy. My car was parked along the PCH and I heard this line in my head, regret me. All I had in my car to use as paper was the back of my registration and a gas station napkin. And I searched high and low for something to write with. There was nothing in the door compartment, nothing in the glove box. I got out of the car and I searched under the seats, and under the passenger seats was a stick of eyeliner. I started writing, lightning fast, maybe 10 minutes. Beginning to end, I had a song. Billy. I was watching Julia in the teacups and with Camilla, and I'm watching them go round and round, and the twins are asleep in the stroller, and I'm trying to put the morning out of my head, but I'm losing my mind because, well, it was complicated, obviously. How I felt about Daisy, obviously. And then, you know what I realized? It wasn't very important. How I felt about Daisy. History is what you did, not what you almost did, not what you thought about doing. And I was proud of what I did. Daisy. Did Billy's action really warrant the song? Probably not. I mean, no, they didn't. But that's the thing. Art doesn't owe anything to anyone. Songs are about how it felt, not the facts. Self-expression is about what it feels to live, not whether you had the right to claim any emotion at any time. Did I have a right to be mad at him? Did he do anything wrong? Who cares? Who cares? I hurt, so I wrote about it. Billy. We left Disneyland really late. I mean, they were shutting down the park. Julia fell asleep on the way home. The twins had been asleep for a while. As we were driving back up the 405, I put KRLA on low volume, and Camilla put her feet up on the dashboard and her head on my shoulder. It felt so good. Her head on my shoulder. I held my back straight and didn't move an inch, just so she'd keep it there. There was this unspoken thing between Camilla and I back then. I mean, she knew Daisy was. She knew that things were, I guess what I'm saying is that in some marriages, you don't need to say everything that you feel. I think saying everything that you think and feel, well, some people are like that. Camilla and I weren't. With Camilla and I, it was much more. We both trusted each other to handle the details. I'm trying to think of how to explain it, but because when I say it now, it seems crazy. Like Camilla and I never discussed the fact that it seemed crazy that Camilla and I didn't have this open conversation about Daisy, because clearly she was a big factor in our lives. I know it might seem like maybe it was a lack of trust, that either I didn't trust her to know just what was going on with Daisy, or that she didn't trust me enough to have been able to handle that. But it's really the opposite. Right around the same time, give or take a few years, I can't remember, Camilla got a call from this guy from her high school, some guy that was on a baseball team, and I took her to the prom and took her to the prom and all that. I think his name was Greg Egan or Gary Egan, something like that. She said to me, I'm going to get lunch with Gary Egan. And I said, okay. And she went and got lunch with him, and she was gone for 4 hours. No one eats lunch for 4 hours. When she got back, she gave me a kiss, and she, started doing the laundry or something. And I said, how was your lunch with Greg Egan? And she said, fine. And that's all she said. In that moment, I knew that what happened between her and Gary Egan, whether she still felt anything for him, how he felt about her, anything that might have taken place, all of that wasn't my business. I wasn't anything she wanted to share. It wasn't anything she wanted to share. That was a singular moment for her, and it had nothing to do with me. I'm not saying that I didn't care. I cared a lot. I'm saying that when you really love someone, sometimes the things they need may hurt you, and some people are worth hurting for. I had hurt Camilla. God knows I had. But loving somebody isn't perfection and good times and laughing and making love. Love is forgiveness and patience and faith, and every once in a while, it's a gut punch. That's why it's a dangerous thing. When you go loving the wrong person, when you love somebody who doesn't deserve it, you have to be with someone that deserves your faith, and you have to be deserving of someone else's. It's sacred. I have no tolerance for people that waste other people's faith in them. None at all. Camilla and I promised to put our marriage first, to put our family first, and we promised to trust each other in how best to do that. Do you know what you do with that level of trust when someone says, I trust you so much, I can tolerate you having secrets. You cherish it. You remind yourself how lucky you are to have been given that trust every day. And when you have moments when you think, I want to do something that would break that trust, whatever that is, loving a woman you shouldn't be loving, drinking beer you shouldn't be drinking, do you know what you do? Get your ass up onto your 2 feet and you take your kids to Disneyland with their mother. Right? Camilla, if I've given the impression that trust is easy with your spouse, with your kids, with anybody you care about, if I've made it seem like it's easy to do, then I've misspoken. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But you have nothing without it, nothing meaningful at all. That's why I chose to do it over and over and over, even when it bit my ass, when it bit me in the ass, and I will keep choosing it until the day I die. Daisy. I called Simone that night when I got back to my place. She was in New York. I hadn't seen her in a month or so, maybe more by that point. And it was one of the first nights in a really long time that I spent alone, not hanging out with anybody, not partying with somebody somewhere. It was just me in the cottage. It was so quiet. It hurt my ears. I called her and I said, I'm all alone. See, Simone, I could hear this deep sadness in your voice, which is rare with Daisy, if only because she's usually hoped up on something. Do you realize how sad you have to be sad on Coke and Dixies? I knew if she knew how often I was thinking about her, she wouldn't feel lonely. Daisy. Simone said, do me a favor, picture a map of the world. I was not in the mood. She said, just picture it. So I did. And she said, and you're in LA, you're blinking light. You with me so far? And I said, sure. And you know, you blink brighter than anybody. You get that, don't you? And I said, sure. Just humoring her. And then she said, and then in New York today and London on Thursday and Barcelona next week, there's another blinking light. And that's you? I said. And she said, that's me. And no matter where we are, no matter what time of the day it is, the world is dark and we are 2 blinking lights flashing at the same time. Neither one of us flashing alone. That's very beautiful here. This relationship with this friendship, this strong friendship between Simone and Daisy. Graham. Billy called me at 3 in the morning one night. Karen was with me. I only answered the phone because I thought somebody must have died if I'm getting a call at 3 in the morning. Billy didn't even say hello. He just said, I don't think this is going to work. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, Daisy's got to go. And I said, no, Daisy's not going to go. But Billy said, I'm asking you, please. And I said, no, Billy, come on, man. We're almost done with the album. And he hung up the phone, and that was the end of it. Camilla, in the middle of the night, one night, I heard Billy get up and pick up the phone. I was pretty sure he was talking to Teddy. I wasn't sure. I heard him say, Daisy's got to go. And I knew. I mean, of course, I knew. That says it all. Gran. I just thought he was freaking out because he wasn't the star of the album anymore. I mean, I knew things between Billy and Daisy were dicey, but back then I thought music was just about music. But music is never about music. If it was, we'd be writing songs about guitars, but we don't. We write songs about women. Women will crush you, you know? I suppose everybody hurts everybody, but women always seem to get back up. You ever notice that? Women are always still standing. Interesting thinking here. Don't know whether you agree with Graham or not, but that's an interesting reflection here. Okay. Rod. Daisy wasn't scheduled to be in that day. Karen. We were sweetening young stars. I was in the lounge when I saw Daisy come in. You could tell she was whacked up. Daisy. I was drunk. In my defense, it was 5 o'clock or close to it. Isn't that the international drinking time? No, I know. I'm aware it was absurd. Give me a little credit. I know how crazy I am. Billy. I was in the control booth, listening to Eddie's overdubs, trying to get him to slow his stuff down a little bit when Daisy whips open the door and says she needs to talk to me. Daisy. He tries to pretend he has no idea why I want to talk to him. Billy. So I say, okay, and I step out into the kitchen with her. She hands me a napkin and the back of a bill or something. And she's scrolled all over in it in black smudges. Daisy. Eyeliner pencil smears easily. Billy. I said, what is this? And she said, this is our new song. I looked at it again. I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. She says, it starts on the paper and then goes over to the napkin. Daisy. He reads it one time and then he says, we're not recording this. And I say, why not? We're talking by a window and it's open and Billy leans over and he shuts the window, just like slams it shut. And then he says, because Billy, when you write a song that may or may not be about someone, you can be pretty sure they aren't going to ask, because no one wants to sound like a jerk who thinks everything is about them. Daisy. I said, give me one good reason why we shouldn't record this song. He started talking and I interrupted him. I said, I'll give you 5 good reasons we should. Billy. She put up her fist and then started counting her fingers off. 1, you know it's good. 2, you were just saying the other day, we need something hard, something less romantic. This is that. 3, we need at least one more song. Did you want to write another one together? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm sure don't feel like writing together. 4, it's written to the melody of that blues shuffle you've been working on, so it's already on its way to a finished song. And lastly, 5, I relooked at the track list. This album is about tension. If you wanted to have movement thematically, you need something to break. So here you go. It's all broken now. Daisy. I had rehearsed my speech on the way over. Billy. It was hard to make a case against it, but I still tried. Daisy. I said, there's no reason not to record this song unless there's something else bothering you. Billy. I said, there's nothing bothering me, but I just say no. Daisy. You aren't the boss of the band, Billy. Billy. I said, we write together, and I'm not writing that with you. Daisy grabbed the papers and stormed out of the room, and I thought that was that. Daisy. I pulled everybody in the lounge, everybody that was there. Karen. Daisy literally dragged me by the sleeve. Warren. I'm standing at the back door with a joint in my hand and I feel Daisy's hand on my shoulder and she's pulling me back into the studio. Eddie. Pete was in the booth with Teddy. I'd been in the John. When I came out, Pete had come out too to see what was going on. Graham, Pete and I were sitting in the lounge working on something when suddenly everyone is standing in front of us. Daisy, I said, I'm going to sing you all a song. Billy, I found them all in the lounge. I was thinking, what the fuck is going on? Daisy, I said, and then we're going to vote on whether it should get recorded and put on the album. Billy, I was so angry. It was like I surpassed hot and went cold, just frozen there, stunned. I could feel the blood drain out of me, like someone pulled the stop on a tub. Daisy, I just went for it. Nothing accompanying me, just sing the song the way I heard it in my head. When you look in the mirror, take stock of your soul, and when you hear my voice, remember you ruined me whole. Karen, her voice was guttural. Part of it was that she was clearly drunk or buzzed or something, and her voice was scratchy. But the combination of the two, it was an angry song. She was angry singing it. Eddie, it was rock and roll. It was rage, man. She thrashed. When I tell people what it's like to make a rock album, I'll tell them about that day. I tell them about standing there in front of the hottest chick you've ever seen in your life while she's thinking her guts out, and everybody's feeling like she's about to lose her goddamn mind in the best way possible. Warren, you know when she had me? When I knew that song was fucking great? When she said, when you think of me, I hope it ruins rock and roll. Billy, when she finished, everyone was dead quiet. And I thought, okay, good. They don't like it. Daisy, I said, who thinks the song should be on the album? Raise your hand. And Karen's hand went straight up. Karen, I wanted to play on that song. I wanted to rock out on stage with a song like that. Eddie, it's a scorned woman's song, but it was a great one. I put my hand straight up, and Pete did too. I think he liked that. It really felt like dangerous stuff, you know. So much of what we were doing on that album sounded so soft. Warren, I said, put me down as a yes, and then I put my joint back to my lips and went back to the parking lot. Graham, we wouldn't have been voting if Billy liked the song, right? My instinct was to back him up, but it was also a great song. Daisy, everybody has their hands up, but Graham and Billy. And then Graham put his up too. I looked at Billy in the back. I said, 6 against 1. He nodded at me, at everybody, and he walked away. Eddie, we recorded it without him. Whoa. Okay, Rod, it was time to think about how we were going to market this album. So I set the band with a photographer friend of mine, Freddie Mendoza, really talented guy. I played him a couple of early tracks from the album just to give him a sense of what we were going for. He said, I see it in the desert mountains. Karen, for some reason, I remember Billy saying he wanted to shoot the cover with us on a boat. Billy, I thought we should do a shoot under sunrise. We already decided the album should be called Aurora, I think. Daisy, Billy had decided the album should be called Aurora, and nobody could really argue with him. But it was not lost on me that this album I worked my ass off on was named after Camilla. Warren, I thought we should shoot the cover on my boat. I thought that would be cool. Freddie Mendoza, the photographer. I was told to get a picture of the whole band with Billy and Daisy as the focus. Really no different than any other band photo shoot, right? You have to be keenly aware of who you're featuring and how to make it seem natural. Rod. Freddie wanted a dessert vibe. Billy said it was fine, so that was that. Graham. We all had to be at this spot in the Santa Monica Mountains at the crack of dawn. Warren. Pete was something like an hour late. Billy. I looked at us as we were standing around waiting for the photographer to set the shoot, and I sort of stepped outside of myself a bit, tried to see us as others would see us. I mean, Graham was always a good-looking guy, bigger than me, stronger than me. He'd grown a little rounder over the years. We'd been living high on the hog, but it looked good on him. And Eddie and Pete were gangly guys, but they dressed well. And Warren had that mean stash. That mean stash that was cool back then. Karen was gorgeous in an understated way. And then there was Daisy. Karen. We're all gathering up there, and we all pretty much just have on jeans and t-shirts. That's what Rod said. Just wear what you normally wear. And then Daisy comes in and she's wearing cutoffs and a white tank top with no bra on. And she's got her big hoop earrings, the bangles on her arms. Her shirt was thin and white, and you could see her nipples clear as day. And she knew that. And suddenly it was crystal clear to me. This cover is going to be about Daisy's chest. Daisy, I'm not apologizing for shit having to do with the album cover. I dress how I want to dress. I wear what I feel comfortable in. How other people feel about it is not my problem. I said that to Rod. I said that to Billy before. I had a lot of talks about it with Karen. She and I have agreed to disagree. Karen, if we want to be taken seriously as musicians, why are we using our bodies? Daisy, if I want to walk around topless, that's my business. Let me tell you, when you're my age, you're going to be glad you took a picture of them then, too. Graham, Billy and Daisy hadn't really spoken that I could see since regret me. Billy, there was nothing to say. Daisy, he owed me an apology. Pretty Mendoza. Billy had this denim on denim look, right? And then Daisy had on a shirt that was barely a shirt, and I knew that was the photo, his denim and her tank top. I put the band along the road against the guardrail that stood between the pavement and the steep drop-off of the canyon. There was a huge looming mountain 100 feet behind them, and the sun was coming up. Between the 7 of them standing there, all in their various poses, I could tell we were getting something right. I mean, it was just so much Americana in one photo, right? You got the road and the dust and dirt. You've got this band on a cliff, half of them scruffy, half of them beautiful. You've got the desert and forest of the Santa Monica Mountains, with just a little bit of trees cropping up in the pale tan ground. And you've got the sun shining down on all of it. Then you've got Billy and Daisy, right? They had each veered to opposite ends of the group, but I kept trying to get everyone to mix up. And at one point, I watched as Daisy leaned forward. She was looking at Billy. I just kept shooting. I always try not to call any attention to anything. I try to hang back and let people do what they're going to do. So I just kept snapping as Daisy was looking at Billy, and everyone else is looking at me, at the camera. And then, for a split second, bam, Billy turns and looks at Daisy just as she's looking at him. And they locked eyes. And I caught it. I thought, that's good enough to be an album cover. As soon as I think I have something good, I immediately feel freer, right? I feel ready to try stuff and move people around and feel like I can push people a bit further, because if they get mad at me and walk off, it's not a problem, right? So I said, that's great, guys. Now let's go to the top of the mountain. Billy. We had already been out there in the hot sun taking photos for an hour or two by that point. I was ready to go. Graham, I said, we're driving up, not walking. And the photographer and I went back and forth a few times, and finally it was decided that I was right. Freddie Mendoza. We ended up in the perfect spot. Billy and Daisy got out of the car and they stood there on the top of this mountain with just a clear blue sky behind them, right? And the rest of the band lined up and they started standing in between Billy and Daisy. And I said, let's do Billy, Daisy, and Graham. Graham. So I finally got Billy and Daisy next to each other, and their body language was like they didn't want a single atom of their bodies in contact. I tried to make conversation to loosen them up. I said, how did Daisy come to join the band? Because I didn't know the story and I figured it would be easy to talk about. Billy and Daisy both started talking at the same time, and then they looked at each other again. I took a few shots, and then I zoomed in on Billy and Daisy's torsos, their chests, as they were talking to each other. They were angled, and there was so much. The negative space between them felt alive somehow, electric. There was so much purpose behind the not touching, right? I could tell as I was looking through the viewfinder, I knew it was a great shot. Daisy, when we were up there on the top of the mountain, the guy put Billy and me next to each other and asked us some dumb questions. And immediately, Billy and I have barely said 5 words to each other. And in days, the first thing out of Billy's mouth is some dig at me. Billy, it's some nerve coming into my band and taking over my album and being at the center of my album cover and then interrupting me when I am trying to answer the guy's question. Karen, we're standing there posing, the rest of us, and you could tell the camera wasn't even aimed at us. The guy wasn't even pretending to take our photo. Do you know how stupid you feel posing for a picture nobody is taking? Karen, I accidentally sat on a rock that got loose and started tumbling down the hill, almost knocked Eddie down with it. He had to jump out of the way. Eddie, it was a long day. I was getting so sick of those fucking people. Graham, I was standing on the top of a mountain with the woman I loved, shooting a cover of an album we all knew was going to be a massive hit. I swear, I think about that day sometimes when I'm feeling low. I think about it to remind myself you never know what kind of crazy good shit it is around the corner. But it's hard not to remember when I think about that day that lots of crazy bad shit is often around the corner too. Freddie Mendoza. When I started developing the images, I knew the one of the band against the guardrail with Billy and Daisy looking at each other. I knew that one was great, right? But then I pulled out the best one from the shots of Billy and Daisy's torso, and I just went, fuck yeah. It's the kind of great photograph that the moment you see it, you can't help but have an emotional reaction. He was in denim. You could see her chest. You knew who they were, even without seeing their faces. You could feel in the gaps yourself, with the clear blue sky between them, which was framed in a more or less straight line in Billy's side, and then on Daisy's side, it was curvy because it ebbed and flowed with her body. It was masculine and feminine at the same time. And then when you really looked, You could see there was something in her pocket. I didn't know what it was for sure. It looked like a vial. I was assuming for pills or powder. And it just brought it all together. It was America. It was ticks, it was sex, it was drugs, it was summer, it was angst, it was rock and roll. So there it was, Billy and Daisy, their torsos in front, and then the whole band, Billy and Daisy looking at each other on the back. A great fucking album cover, if I do say so myself. Daisy, it was Coke in my pocket. What else would it be? Of course, it was dope. Billy, you know when you can't stop clocking where somebody is, even when you tell yourself you don't care? I felt like I was always trying not to look at her. I swear that guy just caught the only 2 times I was looking at her. He caught me on the front cover and the back cover. Graham, when Teddy showed us the full mock-up of the album sleeve with Billy and Daisy in the front and then them looking at each other in the back, none of us should have been surprised. But it does sting a little. It does sting a little to know you're not the main attraction. I mean, I'd been living in my brother's shadow from basically the day I was born. I was starting to wonder how much longer I had to do that. Eddie. Billy and Daisy always believed they were the most interesting people in the world. And that whole album cover confirmed it for them. Billy. It was a great cover. Daisy. It's iconic. Karen. Recording was really starting to wind down. We were back in the studio putting finishing touches and stuff. Eddie. I think it was sometime after we finished the overdubs on This Could Get Ugly, and I was at the studio listening to some of the tracks with everybody. Well, not Warren and Pete or Billy. They weren't there. And then Teddy left at some point, and then Rod, and I think even Artie left. And then I was going to call it a night, so I went out to my car to go home, and I realized I'd forgot my keys. So I came back real quick, and I heard 2 people screwing. And I thought, who the hell is getting off in the bathroom? Screwing, they're having sex, yeah? And then I heard Graham's voice, and I saw through the crack of the door, Karen's hair. And I just ran right out there, got in my car, drove home. But when I got home, I realized I was still smiling. I was happy for them. They made a lot of sense together. I thought, I bet they get married. And I never thought that about anybody. Warren, I think I finished my last track somewhere in December. I remember thinking I was ready for this album to be done so we could get back on the road. I wanted the crowds and the cheering and the groupies and the drugs. Also, something they don't tell you when you buy a houseboat, it's very easy to get cabin fever. That's really meant to be more of a weekend thing. Karen, as we all got done with our parts in the album, we started taking off, taking a much needed break. When Graham and I had laid down everything we were supposed to, we rented a place in Carmel for a few weeks, just the 2 of us, a cabin, the beach, the trees, well, and shrooms, mushrooms. Graham, I think Eddie and Pete went back to the East Coast for their mom's birthday or something. Eddie, I needed to let loose after our parents' anniversary party. Pete and Jenny stayed with our parents, and I spent about 2 weeks in New York. Daisy, there wasn't anything left for me to do. I'd recorded my vocals, the album cover was done, our tour dates weren't set yet. I said, screw it, I'm going to Phuket. I needed a trip to clear my head. Just gonna have a little break. Drinking break. Billy, I took a little bit of time, but time off, but then I went back in the studio with Teddy and we went through that album second by second, track by track, and we remixed and remixed and remixed until it was perfect. Teddy, Artie, and I were in the control room for what felt like 20 hours a day for 3 weeks or something. Occasionally, I'd get in there and re-record some of the instruments when we felt like a riff wasn't exactly right, or we wanted to add tack piano or dobro or some brushes on the drums. Simple stuff. Artie Snyder. It was one album when everyone left, and when everyone came back, it was a different album. It was much more nuanced, layered, innovative. Diddy and Billy went in and filled in all the air. They added cowbells and shakers and claves and scrappers. I think at one point we even recorded the sound of Billy's fist hitting the side of the arm of a chair because we liked the hollow sound it made. Diddy and Billy had a real vision. They had a keen sense for how the songs needed to build, and Teddy had a real focus on momentum. You take a song like Regret Me, which when they started with it was just one vocal and a pretty simple shuffle, and Teddy pretty much forced Billy to get in there and do a whole second vocal layer. Billy didn't want to at first, but by the end of it, it put a big stamp on that song. He rewrote and recorded the main riff, and he and Teddy pulled Warren's drums back until the pre-chorus. I mean, they made it a new song. On Aura, Billy slowed it down, thinned out Karen's key, and turned Graham way up. It became much cleaner. Teddy and Billy, and it got to be me too. We had a shorthand. We were having fun with it. I think that really shows. I think it shows on the final cut. The final mix of that album is dynamite material. Billy. When we had the songs, how we wanted them, Teddy and I gave a lot of thoughts to the song order. People like it when you make them sad, I think. But people hate it when you leave them sad. Great albums have to be roller coasters at the end. Great albums have to be roller coasters that end on top. You gotta leave people with a little bit of hope. So we thought for a real long time about the track list. We had to get that just right. We ordered it thematically and instrumentally. You start big and bold, chasing the night. Things start getting more intense, with This Could Get Ugly. Then Impossible Women is wild and dark. It has a haunting quality to it. Turn It Off takes off running. It's an anthem. Please is desperate. There is urgency and begging. You turn to side B. Young Stars is tortured, but up-tempo. It's like dangerous, but you can dance to it. And then you go right into Regret Me, which is hard and fast and raw. And then come down with it with Midnights, which gets a little sweeter. You lead into A Hope Like You, slow and tender and wistful and Spartan. And then, the sun comes up at the end. You leave on the high note. You go out with a bang. Aurora. Sprawling and lush and percussive. The whole album. It's a great ride. Start to finish. Simone. I was in Manhattan when I got a postcard from Daisy from Thailand. Daisy. For the first few days I was in Thailand, I just wanted to decompress. I had this idea that I would go somewhere alone and maybe reflect on myself. Obviously, that didn't happen. 2 days in, I was going stir crazy. I was almost about to book myself a flight home 5 days early. Simone. The postcard she sent just said, "Come to Phuket, bring Coke and lipstick." Daisy. But then I met Nikki. I was laying outside of the pool, looking out over the water, high off my ass, and this incredible, handsome, tall, elegant looking man came out and he was smoking a cigarette. And I said, "Can you put that out, please?" Because I hated smelling smoke unless I was smoking. He said, "You think just because you're gorgeous, you get what you want?" And he had this fabulous Italian accent. I said, "Yes." And he said, Okay then. You're right." And he put out the cigarette and he said, "I'm Niccolo Argento." And I thought that was such a great name. I kept saying it over and over, Niccolo Argento, Niccolo Argento. He bought me a drink, and then I bought him one. And then we did a line or two off the side of the pool, as you do. And then I realized he had no idea who I was, which was sort of a novelty at that point, because most people at least knew Honeycomb. So I tell him about the band, and he tells me about himself, that he travels from place to place, never staying anywhere for too long. He calls himself an adventurer. He says he's in search of a full life experience. Then he comes out that he's a prince. He's an Italian prince. The next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. and we're in my hotel room listening to records at full volume, and the hotel staff are telling us to keep it down. And Niccolo has LSD, and he's telling me he loves me, and I'm saying that I know it sounds crazy, but I think I love him too. Simone. I wanted to see her, and I had a few weeks off between gigs, and I was a little worried about her, which at this point was just status quo. So I bought a plane ticket. Daisy. Over the next few days, I told Nikki everything. I bared my soul to him. He loved the music I loved, and the art I loved, and the pills I loved. It made me feel like he was the only one that could ever understand me. I told him how lonely I was and how hard it had been to work on that album and how I felt about Billy. I didn't hide anything from him. I opened up and just let it pour out, and he listened to it all. At one point I said, "You must think I'm crazy." And he said, "My Daisy, everything about you makes perfect sense to me." It seemed like there wasn't anything about me, any truth that I could tell him that he wouldn't accept. Acceptance is a powerful drug. And I should know because I've done them all. Simone. I flew into Thailand. I was exhausted and jet lagged, and I got on a rickety bus to get to the hotel. I checked in. I asked the concierge what room Lola Lacava was in, and she had checked out. She was gone. Daisy. Nikki and I were out at this disco in Patong, and he got this idea that we should pack up and go to Italy. He said, "I have to show you my country." I must have called somebody and booked 2 tickets to Florence at some point, because these tickets just showed up at the door one morning. So Nikki and I flew to Italy, and I swear I was halfway there before I remembered Simone was on her way to meet me. Simone. I tracked her down by pretending to be her while talking to her credit card company. Daisy. Nikki and I were in the Boboli Gardens in Florence when he said, "Let's get married." Whoa. So then we flew to Rome and got married by some family friend of his who was a priest. We said I was Catholic. I lied to a Catholic priest, but I was wearing this gorgeous ivory off the shoulder cotton lace dress with huge bell sleeves. I regret that marriage, but I do not regret that dress. Simone. I finally found Daisy in this grand, massive hotel room overlooking Vatican City in Rome. In Rome, I had to fly halfway around the world and back to find her. And when I did, she was completely bombed, naked except for a pair of underwear. and she had chopped her hair off into this shaggy bob. Daisy, that was a great haircut. Simone, it was a really good haircut. Daisy, I've always said the Italians know hair. Simone, Daisy didn't even seem all that surprised to see me, which just told me how messed up she was. And the first thing I noticed when I sat down was that she had a huge diamond ring on her end. And this guy comes out, thin body, thick curly hair, and he had no shirt on. And Daisy says, Simone, this is my husband, Niccolo. Daisy, technically, marrying Niccolo made me a princess. That can't be left out of the equation. I did like the idea of belonging to a huge royal family. Of course, that's not what my life with Nikki was like at all. I should have known being with Nikki wouldn't turn out the way he made it seem. Here's the lesson for everybody. Take it from me. Handsome men that tell you what you want to hear almost always almost always liars. Are almost always liars. Simone, I tried to get her to come home, but she wasn't budging because when I would tell her there were things she had to do. You have to get ready to tour for your album. You should stop, or you should stop doing so many drugs at one time, or you should try to spend a little time sober. There was Nikki telling her she didn't have to do anything she didn't want to. She didn't want to do. He was there, amplifying all of her bad instincts all the time. It was like a bird chirping in her ear, validating every impulse. Karen, when we all met back up in January, Daisy wasn't anywhere to be found. Graham, we were sitting in Teddy's office over a runner, with Rich Palantino. We're all gonna give the final mix a listen, and we were all expecting to. Well, we all figured we knew exactly what we recorded, give or take. Warren, I was hungover. There was no coffee in either of the coffee pots at Reiner's offices. I said to the secretary at the front desk, "Do you mean there's no coffee?" And she said, "The machine is broken." I said to her, "Well, I'm sure as shit not gonna be alive in this meeting then." She said, "You're too much." And then she seemed a little bit mad, like I couldn't get a read on her. And I was really hungover. I said, "Wait, I haven't slept with you, have I?" I had not. Karen, the album starts playing. We're all sitting around the table. Eddie, first song, Out of the Gates, Chasing the Night. He changed my fucking lick. He changed my mother fucking lick. Billy, I don't think I realized until we were listening to it all together. I don't think I realized just how many things Teddy and I had changed. Eddie, it just got worse from there. He changed the tuning on Please, completely changed it and re-recorded it as if I wasn't going to notice it shifted the Nashville tuning. Like, I'm not going to notice that the song has to be played on a different goddamn guitar. And everybody else, they saw it. They could see what he had done. But no one was going to speak up, you know? You know what I'm saying? Because Teddy and Runner were so happy with the record that they were talking about booking stadiums and pressing over 100 masters and all that shit. They're saying they want to release Turn It Off as soon as possible, and they think it can hit #1. So everybody had dollar signs in their eyes, and nobody said much of anything to Billy or Teddy. Karen, it pulled my kids off of 2 songs, and I was mad. Of course I was mad. But what were we gonna do? You've got Rich Palantino so excited about the album. He's spitting when he talks. Warren, I'd have respected it a lot more if Billy hadn't tried to pretend he wasn't producing the album with Teddy. I don't like underhanded shit. I don't like saying one thing and doing another. But I was also the drummer in a successful rock band that everybody was saying was headed to the top of the charts. I've always had a good sense of perspective. If I do say so myself. Rod. That's when the whispering started. Everybody stopped talking to each other and all started whispering to me. Karen would say, "He took out my keys and he didn't even run it by me." And I had said, "You have to talk about it. You have to talk to him about it." And she wouldn't. And Pete would say that the record was too soft now, that he was embarrassed by it. And I said, "Talk to Billy about it." I'd say to Billy, "You need to talk to your bandmates." He'd say, "If they want to talk to me, they'll talk to me." And everybody's wondering when Daisy's coming back, but I'm the only one willing to try to track her down. Graham. It was a strange reminder that things were changing, that we weren't the same band we were a few years ago. A few years ago, if Billy was going to re-record Eddie's tracks, he would have talked to me about it. He would have bounced the idea off of me. Instead, he was talking to Daddy. But that was true of a lot of things between Billy and me. I had Karen. He had Camilla and his girls. And when he wanted to talk about ideas, well, at least throughout the record of Aura, he had Daisy. I'm not going to say I was feeling like Billy didn't need me anymore. That's dramatic. But maybe I was feeling like we weren't a team all the time anymore, that we'd outgrown that. You know, I think a lot of how I defined myself was in relation to him. My whole life until around that point, I always felt like Billy Dune's little brother. And that was when it occurred to me that he probably never defined himself as Graham Dune's older brother. Would never have thought to. Billy. In hindsight, I can see why they were mad, but I don't regret any work I did on that album. The work speaks for itself. Karen. It's so complicated. Was the album our best one because Billy was forced to let us in on the composition and arranging from the outset? I think so. Was it the best one because Billy ultimately took the reins back? Because Teddy knew when to make Billy listen to other ideas and when to let him run the show? Was it only the best because of Daisy? I have no idea. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I have no idea. But when you're a part of something as big as that album ended up being, you want to know if you were an integral part. You want to believe they couldn't have done it without you. Billy never did put much effort into making everyone feel integral. Billy. All bands have trouble with this stuff, you know, how hard it is to get this many people to agree on anything this subjective. Artist Nida. I had a little inkling of grief later, that some of the band weren't happy with the changes, or maybe the way the changes were handled, but I thought it was sort of odd the way everyone was getting upset as Billy, as if he wasn't in charge. Teddy was in charge. If Billy redid Eddie's tracks, it's because Teddy thought Billy should redo the tracks. I never once saw Billy do anything Teddy wasn't backing. I even made a joke once when Teddy was out of the room. Betty had wanted to take out the dobro on some song, but Teddy wanted it in. When Teddy was gone, I said, should we just go ahead and take it out and see if it notices? Billy shook his head, really serious. He said, biggest hit we've had was a song I hated. Teddy's the only one that saved it. He said, if it comes down to his opinion or my opinion, we go with his opinion. Simone. I finally got Daisy to agree to buy a plane ticket to be back in LA for the start of rehearsal. Daisy. When I told Nikki that it was time for me to go back to LA, he wasn't very supportive. The band had to do press and press release stuff. We had to get ready to head out on tour, and he knew that. I had told him all of that when we met. But he said, "Don't go, stay here. The band doesn't mean anything." That hurt because the band meant everything. This thing that felt like all of my worth, he treated it like it was nothing. I'm embarrassed to say he almost had me. I almost didn't leave for the airport. Simone knocked on the door and Nikki said, "Don't answer it." I said, "It's Simone. I have to answer it." She was standing there and she had this furious look on her face. And I'll never forget, she said, "Get your fucking suitcase and get in the cab now." I'd never seen her like that. And something just sort of clicked in me. You have to have one person in your life that you know would never do anything to steer you wrong. They may disagree with you. They could even break your heart from time to time. But you have to have one person at least who you know will always tell you the truth. You need one person who, when the shit hits the fan, grabs your stuff, throws it in a suitcase, and gets you away from the Italian prince. Simone. I dragged her ass home. Karen. Daisy comes back from this month-long vacation and she's somehow 10 pounds lighter. And then when she left, which, you know, Daisy didn't have 10 pounds to lose, and she's cut all of her hair off and she's got a diamond ring on and she's a princess. Billy. I was floored. I mean, absolutely positively floored. My jaw about hit the floor when she showed up married. Daisy. What did he care? Honestly, what did he care? That's what I was thinking. He was married. I couldn't be married. Warren. Let's not go crazy here. She married the son of a prince. When she got back, I asked her how many people had to die before this guy was king. And she said, well, technically the Italians don't have a monarchy anymore. So that doesn't sound like much of a prince to me. Right. We were slating the album for release that summer. As it got closer, we started sending the finished record out to critics and magazines. We had a lot of requests for interviews. We wanted a big splashy magazine cover to hit the stands right as the album came out. Obviously, we wanted Rolling Stone, and Daisy specifically wanted Jonah Berg again. So I made the call and he agreed to do it. Jonah Berg. The plan was that I was going to hang out with them during rehearsals. I did feel a certain connection with them, the band, because I knew it had been my article that had pushed them into doing an album together. So if I thought the album sucked, that would have been a little embarrassing. But I was really blown away by it. Lyrically, there was a lot going on. Billy and Daisy were credited equally, and some of the most gripping songs were ones where they were credited together. So I was coming into the situation assuming that the story here was that Billy and Daisy had an intense collaborative chemistry. Karen, the first few days of rehearsal, it was really subtle. But if you were paying attention, you'd notice that Billy and Daisy never actually spoke to each other. Graham. As we were talking about the set for the show, we were all sitting around on the stage. Billy and Daisy wouldn't address each other directly. I remember Billy suggested we not play Honeycomb anymore, even though it was a big hit for us. He suggested sticking to Aurora and maybe one or two other songs. Daisy looked at him and said, "What do you think, Ram?" And I think people will expect it. I think people will expect it. We don't want to disappoint them. I could not understand why she was directing it to me. Before I could even answer, Billy looked at me and said, "But it's slow. We have to keep in mind we are playing bigger venues. We need stuff that plays to a crowd." I was about to ask Billy if that meant he didn't want to do A Hope Like You either, because that's also a slow one. But before I could, Billy said, "So that's settled then." And Daisy said, "Well, what does everybody else think?" And the whole time, they weren't even making eye contact. We were all standing around watching them talk near each other. Billy, the first day we rehearsed, I came in with a good attitude. I said to myself, "This is somebody I need to work with. Forget whatever chaos is going on. This is a professional relationship." I tried to put my personal issues with her aside. And you know what? I was still mad about her calling for a vote on Regret Me. Yeah, I was. But it was water under the bridge. It had to be. So I made sure that my tone was kind and I kept my nose to the ringstone. Daisy. I was ready to put all of that crap between Billy and me in the past. I was married now. I was trying to keep my focus on Nikki. I was really trying to make it work. Nikki had finally agreed to join me as we went into rehearsals. He flew in from Rome and moved into my place at the moment. He even had dinner with my folks. I almost never had dinner with my folks. And folks are the parents, folks. But I asked them if they wanted to meet him, and they invited us out to Jay. He was incredibly polite and sweet and really impressed them. He pulled out the whole "Yes, Mrs. Jones, no, Mr. Jones" thing, and they liked that. And then the minute we got to my car afterwards, he'd say, "How can you stand those people?" And I smiled about as wide as humanly possible. I liked being married. I liked the idea of us being a team, of being tied to this one person. I had somebody who asked how my day was every day. Simone. In theory, marriage made a lot of sense for Daisy. She needed stability back then. I mean, she has always been my best friend, always will be. But she wanted someone to share her life with, someone who loved her and cared about her and worshipped her. She wanted someone that when she wasn't home by a certain time would wonder where she was. So I understood what she was trying for. I wanted that for her too. She just picked the wrong person for the wrong reasons. Daisy. Obviously, there were a lot of signs that I'd made a wrong turn. Nicola was deeper in the dope than I was. I was the one telling him to slow it down. I was the one turning down heroin. I was the one noticing just how much we were putting on my credit cards, and he was very threatened by Billy. He was jealous of anyone that I had previously dated or had feelings for, and anyone that he perceived as someone I might possibly sleep with. At the time, I chalked it up to newlywed problems. They say the first year of marriage is the hardest, and I really took that to heart back then. I wish someone had told me that love isn't torture, because I thought love was this thing that was supposed to tear you in two and leave your heart broken and make your heart race in the worst way. I thought love was bombs and tears and blood. I didn't know that I was supposed to make you lighter, not heavier. I didn't know it was supposed to take only the kind of work that makes you softer. I thought love was war. I didn't know it was supposed to be peace. And you know what? Even if I did know that, I don't know what I would have been ready. I don't know that I would have been ready to welcome it, or value it. I wanted drugs and sex and angst. That's what I wanted. Back then, I thought that the other type of love, I thought that was for other types of people. Honestly, I thought that type of love didn't exist for women like me. Love like that was for women like Mila. I distinctly remember thinking that. Simone. Niccolo had a lot of good qualities. He did. He cared about her. He made her feel secure in his own way. He used to make her laugh. They had inside jokes I never understood. Something about the game Monopoly. I don't know. But he genuinely made her laugh. And Daisy had such a great smile, and she'd been happy for a while. But he was possessive. And you can't own anybody, let alone somebody like Daisy. Warren. I met Nicolo and I went, oh, okay, got it. This guy is a con artist. Eddie. I kind of liked Nicolo. He was always really cool with me and Pete. Billy. Nicolo came down to the studio to hear us rehearse a lot. There was one day when Daisy and I were rehearsing the vocal harmonies and it wasn't jibbing. We had a few moments of downtime and I said to her, maybe we need to shift this into a different key. That was more than I'd said to her in I don't know how long, but Daisy just said it was fine the way it was. I said, if you can't hit the note exactly, we have to change something. She rolled her eyes at me and I apologized, but I didn't want to make a scene. I said, okay, I'm sorry. I figured it would work itself out, but she just said, I don't need your apologies, all right? I said, I'm just trying to be nice. And she said, I'm not interested in your nice. Then she shivered and it was cold in the studio and she was wearing basically nothing. She looked cold to me. And I said, Daisy, I'm sorry. Let's just be on good terms, all right? Here, take my shirt. I had on a t-shirt and then a button down over it. Or maybe I wasn't wearing a jacket or something. Anyway, I took it off and I put it around her arms. And she shrugged it off and she said, I don't need your fucking jacket. Daisy. Billy always knows best. He knows when you're not singing right. He knows how you should fix it. He knows what you should be wearing. I was so sick of being told by Billy how things were going to go. Billy. I was sick and tired of being treated like I was her problem. She was my problem. And all I tried to do was give her my jacket. Daisy. I didn't want his coat. What did I want his coat for? Graham. Daisy was raising her voice a little bit, and the minute she did, Nicolo just came running in. Karen. He was over by the couches we had in the corner next to the cooler of beers. He always wore blazers over his t-shirts. Warren. That fucker was drinking all the good beers. Billy. He came running in toward me and grabbed me by my shirt. He said, what's the problem here? I knocked his hand away, and I could tell by the look of his face when I did it that he was trouble. Graham. I was watching it happen, this fight brewing, and I was thinking, at what point do I step in here? I'm worried Billy's gonna clock him. Karen. You wouldn't have thought at first that Nicolo was tough because he was so smarmy and he wasn't muscular or anything. And he was supposedly some prince or what have you. But I watched him puff out his chest a bit and look Billy's formidable guy. But you just got this sense that Nicolo was a little bit unhinged. Warren. There's a code to two men fighting it out. You don't punch the nuts. You don't really kick. You never bite. Nicola would have bitten. You just could see it. Billy. Could I have taken him out? Maybe. I don't think he wanted to fight any more than I did. Daisy. I was not quite sure what to do. I think I just waited, watching it happen. Billy. He said, you stay away from her, okay? You work together and that's it. You don't talk to her, you don't touch her, you don't even look at her. I thought that was bullshit. I mean, sure, this guy can try to tell me what to do, but he shouldn't tell Daisy what to do. I turned and looked at Daisy and said, is this what you want? And she looked away for a moment, and then she looked back at me and said, yes, that's what I want. Daisy. Oh, the tangled messes I've created in my life. Billy. I couldn't believe it. That she would. I had trusted her when all signs said that I shouldn't. And I was done doing that. Completely done doing that. She was exactly who I thought she was. And I felt like I'd been an idiot for thinking otherwise. I put my hands up and I said, all right, man, you won't hear a peep from me. Eddie, I couldn't believe it. Somebody had actually put Billy Dunne in his place. Karen. It was that afternoon, or maybe the next day, that Jonah Berg came for the first time. I was on pins and needles. I think we all were, because Billy and Daisy wouldn't even look at each other. We rehearsed Young Stars all afternoon, and even when they were singing together in harmony, they weren't looking at each other. Jonah Berg. I showed up and I'm expecting this warm atmosphere. I mean, this is a band that has just finished a great album, one where they are clearly all on the same page, working together seamlessly, or so I thought. But I walk in and they are in the middle of a song, and Daisy and Billy are about as far away from each other as two people can be, or still on the same stage. It was visually very jarring. Just, you don't realize how often singers stand close to one another until you see two people facing forward, 15 feet between the two of them, not even looking at each other. Graham, I kept thinking, just get it together when this guy is here. Karen, in this instance, I'd say it was on Daisy to fix what had just happened, and she was gonna do that. Jonah Berg. But even with this tension in the room, the band sounded great, and the songs they were playing were great. That's one thing that the Six has always done, and they did it even better when they had Daisy on board. They made music that it could be the first time you heard a song, but you were tapping your foot along with them. That's a testament to the work of Warren's work. That's a testament to the work of Warren Rhodes and Pete Loving. Daisy and the Six get a lot of credit for intrigue of their lyrics, and certainly everyone's paying attention to Billy and Daisy as they should, but that was one hell of a rhythm section. Billy. I asked Rog at some point if we could reschedule Jonah to another day. Rod. It was too late to move Jonah. He was already there watching them rehearse. Daisy. I didn't see why Billy had to make such a big deal out of it. We could easily have just made nice in front of Jonah Berg. Jonah Berg. After a few songs, they take a break. They all come say hi to me at various points. I shared a cigarette with Warren outside and figured he was my best chance at the truth. I said, level with me. Something's up here. And he said, nothing's up. Just kind of shrugged his shoulder like he had no idea what I was talking about. And I trusted him. I believed that nothing out of the ordinary had happened, that this was just the way they worked together. Billy and Daisy just truly didn't get along, and probably never really had. Billy. I think it was that night that Jonah wanted to take us all out for a beer. But I had told Camilla I'd be home to help her get the kids in the bath. So I asked Jonah if he could do the next night, and it didn't seem to be a problem for him. Eddie, we're all to be we are we're all supposed to be putting this band first, and Billy blows off the first night. We're supposed to be hanging out with Rolling Stone for the cover. Daisy, I figured it was good news Billy was going home. I could take this first swing at the interview without worrying about him being around. Jonah Berg. I appreciated that Daisy made herself available to me. So often you go into a situation and you have certain band members that won't really talk to you. Daisy made it easy to get a story. Rod. Daisy didn't want to go home. That's Rod talking. You know, when you're with someone and it's clear they want to just keep hanging out, keep partying all night, keep working all night, keep doing whatever it's all night, whatever it is all night, because they don't want to go and face whatever they have waiting for them at home. That was Daisy when she was married to Nicolo. Jonah Berg. We'll go out that night. Everybody but Billy. First, we head out to the Bad Breakers show, to this Bad Breakers show over on the strip. And it seems really obvious to me that Karen and Graham must be sleeping together. And I said to them, I said, are you two an item? And Graham says, yes. And Karen says, no. Graham, I didn't understand. I just didn't understand Karen. Karen. Graham and I could never last. It was never, I just needed it to exist in a vacuum where real life didn't matter, where the future didn't matter, where all that mattered was, how we felt that day. Jonah Bear. Warren seemed busy hitting on every woman he could find, and Eddie Loving was talking my ear off, talking about tuning or something. Pete was off with some girl he was seeing. So I decided to focus on Daisy. She was who I wanted to get the most from anyway. Now, I will say this. A lot of people were getting high on whatever they could get their hands on back then. That wasn't anything new. And even as a journalist, that wasn't much you can allude to in the pages of a magazine, certainly one like Rolling Stone. You could imply all sorts of stuff about what everybody was getting up to. But there were some people who didn't seem like they were snorting things for fun. There were some people out there who were getting high because they couldn't hold it together without it. And it was my personal opinion that the drug habits of those people were sort of off limits. A lot of people in my position felt differently. A lot of them behaved differently, wrote differently. I certainly got into a few situations where the years where I felt pressured, or was pressured, I should say, to out those people in the interest of selling magazines. So I tended to not even write down what I observed or tell a single person what I saw. If I thought somebody I was interviewing had a serious drug problem, it was a very see no evil sort of thing for me. When I'm with Daisy that night, we are hanging out in the back of the crowd, and I look over and Daisy is rubbing her gums, and at first I thought it was coke, but I realized she was snorting amphetamines. She did not seem like a it didn't not seem like a recreational user. She did not seem like a recreational user. I guess is what I'm saying. And there seemed a significant difference in the Daisy I met on tour the year before and the Daisy now. She was more frenetic, less eloquent, sadder maybe. No, that's not it. That's joyful. She said to me, "Do you want to go outside?" I nodded and we went into the parking lot and we sat on the hood of my car. And Daisy said, "All right, Jonah, let's do this. Ask your questions." And I said, "If you don't want to go on the record now because you're not on the right state of mind, you need to say so." And she said, "No, let's talk." I had given her an explicit out, and she turned it down. That's all I felt obligated to do. So I said, "What's going on between you and Billy?" And it all just started pouring out of her. Daisy, I shouldn't have said what I said. And then Billy shouldn't have gone and done what he did. Billy, I come into the rehearsal space the next day and everybody's there and they're all talking, messing around. And Jonah says, "When should we set aside some time to talk?" And I said, "Let me see when Daisy's free." And he said, "Well, I want to get some stuff, just the two of us, if you're good with that." That's when I started to get worried. Just the way he said it. I sort of had this feeling like, what did she do? I looked over at her and she was up at the mic talking to somebody, and she had on tiny shorts again and in this cold studio, and I just thought, put some fucking pants on. That's what I was thinking. You're cold. Stop dressing like it's going to be hot in here. You know that's You know that it's cold in here every day. But of course she was hot. She was sweating bullets from all the drugs in her body. I knew that. Daisy, I think that if I had gone up to Jonah that day after talking to him that night and tried to take it all back, he might have let me. And I considered it. I really did. Jonah Berg. I absolutely would not have agreed to let Daisy rescind her comments. People have asked it before. I've always said no. That's why I'm very clear at the beginning when I start recording. I make sure people understand what they are doing when they talk to me. I gave Daisy plenty of outs. She moved forward. At that point, the question of integrity shifts from being my problem to her problem. Billy. So we rehearse for the morning, and Daisy and I just can't get the harmony right in the last verse of the song. But I don't want to get into a fight with her in front of Jonah. I also don't want to be performing this poorly in front of him either. The last thing I want is an article that says that we don't have what it takes live. So when we break, I ask Graham to talk to her and he agrees. And Daisy and I, for at least the rest of that session, just sort of communicated through Graham. I mean, how was supposed to keep track of their bullshit? Who's not talking to who, when, or what goddamn reason? I've got my own problems. I've got my own heart cracking, man. I'm in love with a woman that I am starting to think doesn't love me, and I'm not telling a single soul about it. And you don't see me asking for intermediaries to save me from my own band of crap, my own brand of crap, do you? Billy. After we call it a day, I go out with Jonah and I'm sitting there banging the 57 on a bottle of ketchup when he says, "Daisy says you spent your first tour cheating on your wife and dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction, possibly a heroin addiction. She says you're in recovery now, but that you've missed the birth of your first daughter because you were in rehab." Warren, I don't consider myself to be very high on the list of good people, but you don't tell the people's story. Daisy. I did so many stupid things back then. Basically, for all the 70s, I did a lot of things that hurt people or hurt myself, but that one has always stuck out to me as one I particularly regret. Not just because of Billy, although I did feel badly as I shared something he told me in confidence, but I regret more because I could have hurt his family. And I would never want to do that. Truly. Billy. You know, one of the things you learn in recovery is that self-control is the only control we have. That all you can do is make sure your own actions are sound because you can't control the actions of others. That's why I didn't do what I wanted to do, which was take the bottle of ketchup and throw it at the window. And I did not reach across the table and I did not reach across the table and wring Jonah Berg's neck. And I did not get in the car, find Daisy, and start screaming at her. I did not do any of those things. I stared right at him, and I could feel my breath growing really hot. I could feel my chest expanding up and down. I felt like a lion, like I was capable of destroying him. But I closed my eyes, and I stared at the back of my own eyelids, and I said, please do not print that. Jonah Berg. That confirmed me that it was true. But I said, if you can give me something else to write about, then I won't. I mean, I told you, I don't like printing secrets when they are sad. I got into journalism to tell rock and roll stories, not to tell depressing ones. Give me rock stars sleeping with groupies, give me the crazy shit you did on PCP, great. But I've never liked publishing depressing shit. People's family falling apart and all that. I said, give me something rock and roll. That felt like a win-win. And Billy said, how about this? I can't fucking stand Daisy Jones. Billy, I will tell you exactly what I said. It's right there in the article. I said, she is a selfish brat who's being given everything she wants her entire life and thinks it's because she deserves it. Jonah Berg. When he said talent like Daisy is wasted on people like Daisy, I went, whoa, wow, okay. Here's a great article. It was a way more interesting story to tell, in my opinion. What's gonna sell more copies? Billy Jean used to be an alcoholic and now he's reformed? Or the two lead singers in this hip new band loathe each other? It was not. It was no contest. The world was filled with Billy Jeans. So many men in this world missed their daughter's birth or stepped out on their wives or whatever else they did. Sorry to say, but that's the world we live in. But no, not many people are so creatively in sync with someone they despise. That was fascinating. I told the photographer that I wanted for what I wanted for the cover, and he said it would be easy enough to split together from the photo he had taken. So I went back to New York and I wrote that article in 48 hours. I never write articles that fast, but it was just so easy. And those articles are always the best ones. The kind you swear wrote them. The kind you swear wrote themselves. Grant. The entire point of having Jonah Berg out with us was so that he could write an article about what a smart move it was to have Daisy join the band. And instead, he writes about Billy and Daisy hating each other. It felt like those two assholes let their own personal crap taint the band and the music and all the hard work we've all put into. Rod. It all landed so perfectly, the band just couldn't see it. They couldn't see how great it was. We released Turn It Off as the first single. We booked the band on Midnight Special. We had them doing radio spots all over the country leading up to the album dropping. And then the same week, Aura hits the shelves. So does the Rolling Stone cover. Billy's profile shot on one side, Daisy's on the other. Their noses almost touching. And it says, Daisy Jones and the Six are Billy June and Daisy Jones rock and roll's biggest foes. Daisy Jones and the Six are Billy June and Daisy Jones rock and roll's biggest foes. Warren, I saw that and I just had to start laughing. Jonah Berg always thinks he's one step ahead when he's two steps behind. Karen, if there was one chance that Billy and Daisy were going to put the pettiness behind them and work together, really work together over the course of the tour, I think that magazine interview ended it. I don't think there was much coming back from it. Rod, is there any headline that is going to make you want to see Daisy Jones and the Six perform live more than that? Billy, I didn't care if Daisy was mad at me. I didn't care one bit. Dizzy, we both did things we shouldn't have. When someone says your talent is wasted on you and he says it to a reporter knowing full well it's going to make it into print, you aren't really inclined to mend fences. Billy, you can't claim the high ground when you go around throwing other people and their families under the bus. Rod, there's no diamond record without that Rolling Stone article. That article was the first step in their music transcending the limits of music. It was the first step toward Aura not only being an album, but an event. It was the last kick it needed to blast off. Karen, Turn It Off debuted at number 8 on the Billboard charts. Rod, Aura came out June 13th, 1978, and we didn't hit with a splash. We hit with a cannonball. Nick Harris, the rock critic. This was an album people had been waiting for. They wanted to know what would happen when you put Billy June and Daisy Jones together for an entire album. And then they drop Aura. Camilla, the day the record hit the shelves, we took the girls down to Tower Records. We let Julia buy her own copy. I was a little wary of it, to be honest. I wasn't exactly child-friendly, but it was her dad's album. She was allowed to have her own copy of it. When we left the store, Billy said, "Who's your favorite member of the band?" And I said, "Oh, Billy." And Julia pips up and goes, "Daisy Jones!" Oh my God, yeah. Kitty, are you reacting towards, I didn't see your message until now. Is it, oh my God, about the fact that she told about Billy's addiction and his cheating? Yeah, it was tough. Jean Blades. I was playing the Cow Palace the day Aura came out, I think, and I had a roadie go down to the record store and Jean Blades. Who is Jean Blades again? That's probably, yeah, another musician or singer from another band. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was playing the Cow Palace at the day Aura came out, I think. And I had a roadie go down to the record store and get it so I could listen to it. I remember sitting there before we were about to go on listening to This Could Get Ugly, smoking a cigarette, thinking, why didn't I think to get her to join my band? The writing was on the wall. They were going to eclipse all of us with that cover too. That cover was perfect California summer rock and roll. Elaine Chang, the biographer of Daisy Jones, and biographer and author of Daisy Jones' Wildflower. If you were a teenager in the late 70s, that cover was everything. The way Daisy Jones carried herself, the way she was in full control of her own sexuality, the way she showed her chest through her shirt, but it felt like it was her own, on her own terms. It was a seminal moment in the lives of so many teenage girls. Boys too, I understand, but I'm much more interested in what it meant for girls. When you're talking about images in images in which a woman is naked, subtext is everything. And the subtext of that photo, the way her chest is neither aimed at Billy nor at the viewer, the way her stance is confident but not suggestive. The subtext isn't that Daisy is trying to please you or the man she is with. The subtext isn't my body is for you, which is what so many nude photos are, what so many images of naked women are used for. The subtext for her body in that image, it's self-possession. The subtext is I do what I want. That album cover is why, as a young girl, I fell in love with Daisy Jones. She just seemed so fearless. Biddy Mendoza, the photographer. It's funny, when I shot the album cover, I thought it was just a gig. Now, all these years later, it's all anybody asks about. That's what happens when you do something legendary, right? Well, Greg McGinnis, the former concierge of the Continental White House, the hotel. Once Turn It Off came out, everybody in town was talking about that record. Artist Snyder, the very week it came out, I got 3 jobs offer. People were buying that album, listening to it, loving it. They wanted to know who mixed it. Simone. Daisy just blew up. She went from being well-known to being absolute sensation. She was it. Jonah Berg. Aura was a perfect album. It was exactly what we all wanted it to be, but better than we anticipated. It was an exciting band putting out a confident, bold, listenable album from start to finish. Nick Harris, the critic. Aura was romantic and brooding and heartbreaking and volatile all at once. In the age of arena rock, Daisy Jones and the Six managed to create something that felt intimate, even though it could still play to a stadium. They had the impenetrable drums and the searing solos. They had songs that felt relentless in the best way possible. But the album also felt up close and personal. Billy and Daisy felt like they were right next to you, singing just to each other. It was deeply layered. That was the biggest thing Aura had going for it. It sounds like a good time album when you first listen to it. It's an album you can play at a party. It's an album you get high to. It's an album you can play as you're speeding down the highway. But then you listen to the lyrics and you realize this is an album you can cry to. It's an album you can get laid to. For every moment of your life in 1978, Aura could play in the background. And from the moment it was released, it was a juggernaut. Daisy. It's an album about needing someone and having them love someone else. Billy. It's an album about the push and pull of stability and instability. It's about the struggle that I live almost every day to not do something stupid. Is it about love? Yeah, of course it is. but that's because it's easy to disguise almost anything as a love song. John Hebert. Billy and Daisy was our biggest selling issue of the 70s. Right. Rolling Stone did a lot to get people to buy the record. But the real money was in how many people bought tickets to the show because of that article. Nick Harris, you heard the album and you read about Billy and Daisy in Rolling Stone and you wanted to see it for yourself. You had to see it for yourself. Right? That's it. This is the end of this very long session. It's oh my gosh, almost 9 o'clock. I barely did 3 hours of reading, I guess. But oh man, this was good. I hope, guys, that I helped you travel back in time and immerse yourself in this story of this amazing band recording their greatest album possible, and the greatest album possible in the 70s, this imaginary band, of course, making this amazing album. Yes, Kitty, that's it. We did it. Yay. Guys, you should be so proud of yourself holding on to this session. And Katie, well done for singing with me and this late evening, Monday evening. Well, that's it for me. Now I'm gonna rest my voice a little bit, and I will see you tomorrow for another long session. We will read pages 265 to 303. It's going to be a bit less pages. I hope you enjoyed this live reading. Make sure you subscribe to the book club membership to have access to the 3-part workshop of Daisy Jones and the 6 for free, and attend to the last live session this Saturday. Also, remember, you can purchase the 3-part workshop on White Teeth, is available on my website store. I wish you a beautiful end of the day, and I will see you tomorrow for session 10. And I just say bye-bye to you.